Wow. She said that with such vigor. Well, guys, welcome to OMNI. It's great to have you with us, as always. I'm really excited about tonight because tonight is something different than what we've been doing for the last few weeks. Although last week was something really different too. But tonight is a really cool opportunity. If you guys were a part of OMNI in the last year, or part of life groups especially, you would have gotten to meet our speaker tonight, who is Janine. And Janine was a life group leader. She was a helper in OMNI and did an awesome job. And she has an incredible story that she's going to be sharing with us tonight. And believe it or not, she sat in this room. She sat right where you guys are at in youth group as a youth and went from that place to then God calling her. And soon she's going to be leaving to go full-time to the mission field. And she's traveling all over the world, literally giving her life to sharing the gospel with people, sharing Christ with people, and doing medical missions. And she's going to tell you all about that. But I thought, what an incredible story to see somebody who is a youth where you guys are at, sitting right where you're at in these seats, having the same youth services, the same deal, and then literally giving her life and God calling her to do something awesome. So I said, you got to come out and share before you leave. And this week are taking an offering for her. But also, here's the real challenge. I want to challenge you guys. We're going to take an offering for her next week as well. So can you guys bring in as much money as you can get, because our goal is to get her on the field. She has not raise all of her money yet, and she can't go until she raises it all. So what better group to send her than us, who she poured her life into? So my challenge is, let's all do all that we can, and next week do as big of an offering as we can, and hopefully get her out onto the mission field full time. So without further ado, I am going to welcome, let's make some noise like we've never made before. Better than Ashley Dugan did those announcements. But let's make a shout for Janine. Welcome.
Hi, guys. There's a lot of space up here. It kind of freaks me out. Okay. Hi, Grace. Yeah. Let's see. Open up my iPad. Who upgraded to iOS 7 today? I think it's pretty cool. I think it's cool. I don't know. I think it's cool. So, like Pastor Jared said, I'm getting ready to go onto the mission field, and I have been exactly where you guys are. I sat in those seats as part of youth group, and I just want to share with you guys about my story and how I got to be where I am today. So, we were going to do a little question-answer thing, but it kind of didn't fit in. And so I'm going to give you all the answers that you need to know. My name's Janine. I'm 24. My favorite colors are black and white. My favorite food is anything pumpkin. Oh my gosh. If you go to Ralph's, you have to try the pumpkin pie ice. It's the most amazing thing in the world. And I have 2 younger sisters, and yes, Pastor Steve is my father. So I grew up in church all my life. Since I was literally 11 days old was the first day that they brought me to Bethlehem Assembly of God. And my dad has always been really big on the missions thing. He has gone on lots of mission trips, and so when we were younger, he told me and my sisters that on the year that we turned 13, he would take us on our first mission trip. Although I actually went on my first mission trip when I was 18 months old to Argentina, but I don't remember that. So he took me on my first trip to Mexico, to a city called Puebla. And I went with my mom and my dad and a group of people from the church. And we went into this city, Puebla, Puebla, and we worked with a ministry called Healthcare Ministries. And at that point, when I was 13, I had no idea that I just said idea, and that is so from my dad, and I'm very sorry for that. I had no idea that I was going to go into the medical field. I thought that I was going to be a lawyer because when I was younger, I really liked to argue, and I still do. And so everybody always told me that I was going to be a lawyer. So that's what I always thought that I was going to be. And so I was 13. I had no idea I was going to go into the medical field, but I went on this trip to Mexico, and our church worked alongside of Healthcare Ministries. Is it better if I move forward? Is that why? Am I too the top? Okay. And so we went there, and Healthcare Ministry set up this whole health clinic in the church in Mexico, and then we got to do evangelism. So we went into the town and we handed out flyers saying that there was going to be a free medical clinic, and then once the medical clinic started, there would be hundreds of people that would be lined up outside waiting to be treated by the clinic, and we would get to share the gospel with these people through drama and songs and all sorts of things. And so I met this little girl. Her name was Sol, which means son in Spanish, and she was 3 years old. And when you're 3, you can barely talk to begin with, and she only spoke Spanish and I only spoke English, so we couldn't actually really communicate with each other, but I just started playing with her, and that made her happy because she was a 3-year-old. And I really started to kind of build this relationship with this little girl. And the missionary later on came and talked to me, and she said to me that Sol was actually very sick. She had 3 holes in her heart. And if you don't know what that means that basically, if you have holes in your heart, the blood in your heart can't pump to the rest of your body properly. And so other things start to not function. Other organs start to not function properly because the blood is not flowing to them the right way. But Sol looked perfectly normal. She looked perfectly fine. You would never be able to tell that there was actually something wrong with her. And so I kept in contact with the missionaries, and I said I would, keep praying for Sol when I went home. And so I went home and I prayed and I fasted. The missionaries would tell us when she was going for surgeries, and so every time she went for a surgery, I made sure I prayed and I fasted. I was only, at that point, I was like 14 years old. I was only 14 years old, but I had such a burden for this little girl, Sol. And I remember coming home, and at that time, our youth pastor was Pastor Todd. Some of you may know him. And we had a prayer night at youth group on a Friday night, and he kind of just said, he was like, does anybody here feel like they're called into ministry? And I had just come home from this mission trip, and when you come home from like a trip and you're all like hyped up for God, and you're like, yes, I could do anything. And so that's how I felt, and so I was like, I'm going to be a missionary. I was 14 years old. What the heck did I know at 14 what I was going to do? And so he's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a missionary. So I thought at 14 that I was going to be a missionary. And so anyway, come to find out, about 6 months later, the missionaries in Mexico contacted my family and to let us know that Sol had passed away. And obviously I was really upset about it because I really believed that God was going to heal her and that she was going to be fine. And as a 3-year-old child, you never want to see a child die at the age of 3 years old. So I was really upset about it. And then I kind of went, it kind of just, that experience was just like, okay, it was an experience. And then when you're a teenager, there's so many other things that are going on in your life that you kind of focus on. And I kind of forgot about all of that, and even me saying that I was going to be a missionary. And so then I went through some really tough experiences in my teen years. I thought God was calling me into the ministry, but I had some things that I really just needed to work out between me and God. For a portion of my life, there was a time when I was a teenager that I was depressed, and I had some issues that I really needed to work out, thinking that people would always think, well, you're Pastor pastor's daughter, so your life must be perfect. And I did all those things that a perfect Christian would do. I was on the worship team. I went to every youth group. I was on youth group thing. I was on the drama team. We went to nationals, Joe can tell you. We did everything that a perfect Christian youth would do. But there was always something in me that I felt like I wasn't good enough, that I